Hi, I'm Josh Howell and this is my A2 media evaluation. My media product was a regional Cornish football magazine in the mediums of print and online because one of my ancillary tasks was to make an accompanying website for the magazine. My second ancillary task was the creation of a billboard to promote the magazine print and online versions. Before I began creating my products, I started some research into the conventions of a magazine in order to represent my target audience properly, because as Bentley suggested in 1997, successful media products rearrange the old to create the new. The first thing that I noticed through looking at the following leading football magazine covers, 442, Match of the Day and Match Mag, was that there was usually a colour palette of 3 to 5 colours that also carried across any other products and marketing material for the magazine, such as websites and billboards. In terms of what the colours were on the magazines, I researched because stereotypically football has a very large target audience consisting primarily of males in social grades C1 to E, aged 15 to 25 years. The colours used had to be the ones that represented their favourite football teams and their gender. In other words, the colours used on magazines are colours that are regularly seen in football, colours of kits, pitches and so forth, and these are often bright primary colours that are very eye-catching. For example, 442 used the colours red, white and black and blue on the issue I looked at, while Match Mag used yellow, white, blue and green. I have followed this convention throughout my magazine, on my website and my billboard, but have developed it further by using the colours that are relevant to Cornwall, black and gold, across all of my products to show it is a regional product. I have followed this convention because I wanted to attract my primary target audience, Cornish male football fans in social grade C1 to E. Another convention that I came across was that on the front cover one main image was used. This image was generally either a close-up or a medium action shot of a star player who was featured on the cover story article. For example, Luis Suarez was shown in a medium close-up shot on the cover of 442. Wayne Rooney was shown in a medium shot on the cover of Match, and Angel Di Maria was shown in a medium close-up on Match of the Day. This is again a convention I've followed because it attracts the audience and will help me to rival the other products in the genre. On my cover I used a long action shot of a striker in a football match. This star vehicle represented the target audience because the main star and the other people in the shot were between 16 and 19-year-old males from the social grade C1 to E. Moreover, they are all football players and the main star vehicle plays for the county team and is well known in the Cornish football scene. The mise-en-scene represents the target audience and connotes the genre because the boys playing fit into the target audience and are easy to relate to for the target audience, who will be represented by them. As the main star vehicle is well known, the target audience can recognise him and want to pick up the magazine. Whilst observing the covers of 3 magazines, 442, Match and Match of the Day, I noticed that a common convention was for the masthead to be something within football. For example, Match and 442, which is a formation in football. I took this convention and developed it not only to suit my target audience because they like football, but from a regional perspective too. My magazine name is Gwari, which means play in Cornish. This targets both aspects of my audience because it follows the conventions as it connotes football, but also in the regional language. I followed the typography conventions I had seen on professional mastheads because I used a really simple font style that was similar to the ones used by the star models. I think this font style is right for my target audience because stereotypically football fans are simple, and in terms of my product they won't want anything too complicated and want something that is simple, but also it needs to be visually pleasing without being too fancy. I've followed Lexis and typography conventions on all of my cover stories because I included a range of teasers like Meet the Squad, Exclusive Interview and Can They Win, and put the fonts in a masculine and basic style in a range of sizes to make my cover look professional, interesting and appealing for the target audience. This followed the conventions I saw on Match and 442 because they also used a variety of sporty masculine fonts and Lexis that linked to the semantic field of football. For example, a teaser story on Match was Best Double Act in the World, and a teaser story on 442 was First Europe, Now the World. The final cover convention I observed and followed was the layout. I observed that Match and 442 layouts looked slightly messy, busy and colourful, and followed this because my layout looked busy due to the fact that stories aren't all in lines and the main story is a different colour to the stories to help it stand out. To get my content page right for the target audience, I looked at contents pages of my star models and regional magazines. The first thing I noticed was that the word content always appeared in large font that would attract the target audience near the top or in the middle of the page depending on the image choice for the edition and that the date of the issue is also alongside the masthead. I followed this convention on my content page by putting it an Arial font, and the stories are positioned down the right hand side with the main story and supporting image on the left. The masthead is also on the left hand side at the top of the page with the date beneath it. My contents page is relatively tidy compared to some that I analysed in terms of positioning of stories, but I made it untidier by placing stickers and images around the page to mess it up a little bit. Regarding the colour palette, I noticed that the colour palette was usually the same or very similar to the colour palette on the front cover. For example, Match used yellow and red while 442 used red and white. I followed this convention because I used black, gold and white, which is the same or similar to my cover, and to represent Cornish football fans. The most prominent feature on the contents pages I looked at was the use of eye-catching images. For example, on 442, the contents page had the following images: a close-up shot of a famous manager, a medium shot of a group of players, a long shot of a stadium, and amongst other medium close-up shots of matches and players. All of these images were to represent their story. There was one main image that took up about half of the page, which was for the main story. It was a long shot of a world-famous football stadium, and Match used more images as it's aimed at a lower target audience. There were many medium images of players, stadiums and kits next to their stories to promote them. There again was another main image that took up about 1/3 of the page and was a long shot of a famous player that will attract the target audience. I followed content page image conventions through taking and using similar amount of images, with one main image for the story from the cover. As a long shot of the main player. The other images for the stories have a variety of medium close-ups, medium long shots and medium shots. These are of players and teams. The main story image is on the left-hand side, with the images down the right-hand side with the text to help explain the images. A necessary convention I observed was the use of page numbers. All content pages have them because without them the target audience could not find the stories that they wanted to read quickly in the magazines. In the magazines I looked at, the numbers were about size 12 font in different style to the rest of the text, but still following the simple theme. And I followed this on my contents page by making the numbers size 12 font, and they are a plain font that runs with the design of the page. I observed that every page number is accompanied by either a teaser or an image. The Lexis follows the house style of the magazine and belongs to the semantic field of football, and a lot of stories linked to ones on the cover. I followed this convention by having 6 teaser stories by using informal language, using words associated with the semantic field of football. Other conventions I saw on some of the contents pages I looked at were subscription boxes promoting special offers for buying the magazine each month and letters from the editor. I followed these conventions on my content through a subscription note or offer at the bottom of the page where you can buy the magazine from monthly for a cheap price. The layouts of different contents pages I looked at varied because Match's layout was 8 to 10 images, one main images for the headline story with the other images in a column with the text boxes beneath to give some insight into what the story was about, with a separate box, the main story. 442's layout was similar but less images, around 6 to 8. This contents was more structured with the main image on the top half of the page with a text box for the main story. Beneath this was 6 or 7 images with a text box to describe what the main image or story was about. This taught me that contents pages can have a house style for readers to become familiar. The layout is often built around the images, and providing you include columns of teasers, the word content, text boxes and images, you are following basic contents page conventions. Moving on to looking at double page spreads, I noticed that the common conventions were a large main image that was usually a medium action shot of the player, a team or teams the article was about, a large eye-catching title, a story between 300 to 1,000 words in length that was either a Q&A, a match report or human interest feature. The name of the journalist, the name of the photographer and page numbers were also on the page. For example, 1442 feature spread that I looked at included human interest feature. This was an interview of a world famous football player. This article was around 600 words long. There was also an eye-catching title, World Cup. This was eye-catching because it's the biggest tournament in football and interests readers. There was also a main image of 3 English players that will feature at the World Cup. Both the article and the image were marked by the author and photographer. These are all conventions that I look to follow in my product. I followed these conventions on the double page thread because I included a catchy, bright title that will initially draw in the reader, and I have a Q&A article about an up-and-coming Cornish talent. I also have an image that helps to tell the story of the article and got the readers to visualise the player so they can recognise him in the future. I have also marked my image and article with the name of the photographer and author. I also kept my colour palette similar to the rest of my magazine to keep creating a recognisable brand image. To find out how to create an accompanying billboard and website for my print magazine, I looked at existing ones linking to my main star models along with some others just to further my knowledge. When looking at billboards, I noticed that the common conventions were a large image associated with the product, the name of the product in a similar typography style to the product, and a catchy phrase. Some billboards also had an image of the actual product depending on what it was advertising. For example, the billboard I looked at for Sky Sports had on it a main image of 3 famous football players, the name of the product, and a release date of the product. I also followed these conventions at my billboard because I included an image of a football match that included a local Cornish player, the name of my magazine, and where my magazine is being released. When looking at websites for Match 442 and Match of the Day, I noticed that common conventions were shorter stories than on the printed versions, similar colour palettes to the printed editions, and a range of football images of players from different teams, a range of stories to represent all readers, sometimes video footage from matches, easy to use links, disabled friendly sites and contact information. For my website I only had to include 3 working links, but made the homepage look like there were more to follow on the homepage conventions. I had observed the existing websites. The links that I made worked included the Southwest Peninsula League and the Cornish FA. To make my website look professional, I included images of football matches and relevant players. I also included images that were relevant to the specific articles and wrote 4 stories: a match report, a diet of a footballer, a league overview, and a football boot review. I kept these stories shorter than the one on my double page spread, but kept the writing style and lexis similar to show the website and magazine were branches of the same product. I followed the layout conventions I had seen by including a header, main body and footer on my homepage. The colours I used on my website were black, gold and white. I kept these similar to the magazine and billboard again to link the products. I did not include any videos, and this was something I would improve if I had more time to spend on my website. Something I did do on my website that I think worked well was having links to other sites like the Cornish League. I did this because it shows my website is for a regional magazine, supports the local league and gives a target audience a useful link to something else that they might want to look at. Overall, I do not think I broke many conventions apart from not having professional players on my products, but considering that my magazine is a regional football magazine, it made more sense to feature local players, so breaking this convention worked for the target audience.